Another red flag or kind of behavior characteristic that I think is a little bit indicative of someone who may not be ready for a happy and healthy relationship. And if their response is anything other than an enthusiastic yes, then I think you should watch out because that might be another red flag. Some of these red flags are also applicable to other relationships in your life. So that I understand that there's a little bit of a paradox there. But you're going to have to balance that. That's not, the flex that you think it is themselves. It tells me more about that person than it tells me about their ex. It's a highly toxic and impossible trait. So I find that to be another red flag. On a date with somebody and they haven't done that yet, if they haven't gone through those steps, in my opinion, this person is not ready. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Good Problems podcast. I'm your host, David Nima, and in today's episode, we are going to be talking about a few red flags to look out for on a first date. Now, some of these red flags are also applicable to other relationships in your life, but let's just kind of go through them here and then you be the judge of how it might apply to your relationships. Now, one of the first red flags is how a person discusses their past relationships. More specifically, how they discuss their ex, right? Now, we've all had relationships before. We all have ex-boyfriends and ex-girlfriends, ex-husbands and ex-wives, right? And I think not only how a person's relationship is with their ex, but how they also talk about their ex is very, very indicative of that person themselves. It tells me more about that person than it tells me about their ex, okay? The reason this is important is because I have found that sometimes, you're on a first date and, or maybe a third date or whatever, and the topic of past boyfriends and girlfriends might come up, or ex-husbands and ex-wives might come up. When I hear somebody go on this rant and kind of start talking about how bad their ex was, how toxic their ex was, all the bad things that their ex did, right? They're such a bad person. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, well, you decided to be with that person. What does that say about you? What does that say about your judgment, right? That you chose to get into that relationship. Now, of course, some people will say, well, you don't understand. This person changed. This person changed while we were dating, right? And that's not, the flex that you think it is. Because, of course, people do change. They change throughout a relationship. There's no question about that. But if someone changed for the worse while they're in a relationship with you, that is still a reflection on you. No matter how you want to slice it, it's still a reflection on you. One of the to look at the flip side, for example, I've had relationships where after the relationship is over, my ex-girlfriend is a better person than she was when we first started the relationship. There's been a lot of positive growth. Now, of course, I'm not going to take total credit for all the growth that somebody does, even though I'm in a relationship with them, but I'm going to take some partial credit. I'm going to take some partial credit there. And I think that kind of partial credit is also assignable when somebody goes south. Somebody kind of starts adopting toxic behavior traits while they're in a relationship with you. I mean, imagine if somebody is, a relatively normal, sober person, but after 2 years of dating you, they're an alcoholic, right? What does that say about, that happened under your nose. So the way that you kind of discuss your ex and your perspective on your ex, and I think just to a little bit, maybe your relationship with your ex, if you guys are on speaking terms, but that's really not as important as your perspective, as your mindset. What is your mindset in terms of how you view your past relationship? That is a tremendously indicative factor of your sense of self-worth and happiness. And I think that, if you're on a date with somebody and they start kind of bad-mouthing their ex, no matter if they were like that, before this person started dating them, or they kind of, like I said, adopted these bad behaviors, this is a huge red flag. It's a major red flag, and I think you should take caution there. What the best practice here is that no matter what your ex did that was so bad, you're probably better off to think about the good things that your ex had, right? And kind of cherish those moments together, cherish those good moments together. having learned from some of the negative experiences, and move on. That's your kind of the best practice here in terms of perspective on your ex. There's no reason, you're not comparing yourself to your ex, right? It's not a competition. Nobody cares whose fault it was that the relationship broke up, right? The bottom line is that it is well advised for you to adopt a positive perspective of your past relationships. Every relationship has something to gain. Every relationship taught you something, right? And you've learned something from that relationship. Not to mention that there was hopefully some cherished happy moments together. So you really have an opportunity to take those kind of, special moments and take the lessons learned from those relationships, the growth that you did during that relationship, put them together and have a positive perspective with your ex. So when the topic comes up, instead of all these feelings coming out and it sounds like you're attacking them, what you want to say is something to the effect of like, I dated so-and-so and it was a nice relationship and it came to an end. That's kind of it. And if someone digs deeper, maybe you can go into detail here. But I think that it's highly advisable, especially for people who've been married and are now divorced. It is highly advisable that you adopt a positive narrative about your former significant other, because it is a reflection on you. Okay? And if you're on a date with somebody and they haven't done that yet, if they haven't gone through those steps, in my opinion, this person is not ready. This person is not ready for a relationship with you now, or at least a healthy, positive relationship with you, right? And that's why I think it's a red flag. Another red flag or kind of behavior characteristic that I think is a little bit indicative of someone who may not be ready for a happy and healthy relationship is how they accept compliments. Okay, I know it sounds simple, but it's very insightful to me when I observe the way that a person accepts compliments. Here's my personal pet peeve, and you let me know if this is something that kind of bothers you too, right? So let's say that I'm on a date with somebody, and I say, hey, I really like this and this about you, whatever it is. Let's say I say, hey, I really like your car. Your car is really nice, and I think that's a really cool car that you drive. I'm giving them a compliment, right? And the only response to that should be thank you. That should be the only response. But a lot of people don't kind of say that. A lot of people try to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? They try to kind of negotiate with you on the compliment. They say something to the effect of, oh yeah, that's a great car, but I really wanted this other car, but I didn't get it. Or, they'll say, oh yeah, that's a cool car, but you should have seen my car when I was in college, for example, right? Or that's a really, really cool car, but my brother has an even nicer car, right? Whatever, or like, that's a really, really cool car, but the gas mileage is horrendous, right? They might say something like that. Whatever kind of excuse, whatever but they say after that, that's irrelevant what they say. It's just the inability to be able to accept a compliment. And I think if they can't accept that type of compliment for themselves, they're going to have a tough time giving you compliments. What I think a person like that is saying is that they're not ready to accept a compliment until the scenario is perfect. Right? They want it to be perfect. Even though you give them a compliment on their car, in their mind, there's still a better car to be had, right? And that's fine. You can still strive to have a better car. But hey, accept the compliment right now that you have a nice car, But they don't see it that way, in my opinion. They kind of have a negative view on their current car. And again, this is just an example. Until in their mind, it is perfect. And of course, we know that the term, that perfect status doesn't exist. There's always going to be, room for improvement, whether it's your car or your house or your clothes or whatever it is that you want to be doing, your career. And to wait for this kind of elusive, non-existent, this kind of perfect scenario to be able to give and receive compliments is a highly toxic and impossible trait. So I find that to be another red flag. Now, again, this kind of car analogy applies to almost anything else. You could say, I really love your makeup. I really love your dress. I really love your shoes. I really love, your career. I really love the way that you tell so many jokes. So you can give a variety of compliments that are kind of about the person's physical characteristics or non-physical characteristics, right? It doesn't matter. This is compliment agnostic, so to speak, right? It could be any compliment. I really like the city that you live in, right? I really like the city that you live in, let's just say. And they say, oh yeah, that's great, but I really want to live in this other city. Okay, cool. That's great that you want to live in that other city, but right now just take a moment and bask in this single compliment rather than trying to negotiate with me whether or not you are worthy of this compliment. So that is another major red flag, in my opinion, in terms of inability to receive compliments. Okay, so watch out for that. And the last one here is kind of just self-love. We discuss self-love throughout this podcast. It's one of the most fundamental, essential components to happiness. And I think that if you're on a first date, you want to see if this person has self-love. One of the best ways to find out if somebody has self-love is by asking them. Asking them very clearly, hey, do you love yourself? And see how they respond. And if their response is anything other than an enthusiastic yes, then I think you should watch out, because that might be another red flag. If they say, yeah, I love myself, but, and then they start going off on a whole bunch of things that, have happened to them, or something that they're not happy with and something that they want in the future, huge red flag. You should be at a place of self-love right now, regardless of your problems. And you got to balance your aspirations and your ambitions with your gratitude and contentment of being where you are right now. This is a natural paradox in terms of a healthy, happy mindset, and it's up to you to balance it, right? I'm not saying that these things are consistent. You're right, they are inconsistent. Being happy with what you have is a little bit inconsistent with having aspiration for more, right? So that I understand that there's a little bit of a paradox there, but you're going to have to balance that. Right? And that's why when someone says, hey, do you love yourself? Regardless of your circumstances, you want to give them an astounding yes. Okay? You want to give them an astounding yes. And if you ask somebody that question and they don't give you an astounding 100% true conviction, yes, I love myself answer, then I think it's a little bit of a red flag. Including, in addition to, if they start negotiating with you, right? Yeah, I do. Thank you so much. I do love myself, but blah, blah, blah. Or if, like I said, you ask them, hey, do you love yourself? And they'll say, if they say yes, but, and then they start going off on some kind of excuse or some kind of story. So those are some of the red flags that I would watch out for on a first date. Of course, there's plenty of others, but I think these are some quick shortcuts in terms of your ability to be able to detect whether this person is ready for a happy and healthy relationship with you. And again, this does not have to be a romantic relationship. I think a lot of these things apply to coworkers, neighbors, family, and a whole bunch of other relationships in your life, including romantic relationships. So happy dating, everyone. Let me know if you think that these are potentially good tests or good observations to make on a first date. I'm your host, David Nima, author of the book, Good Problems to Have, The Anatomy of Contemporary Happiness. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Good Problems podcast on YouTube and Instagram, and I will see you all in the next video.